Today is a day to consider our options and make a choice. Our two options are symbolized by two processions to Jerusalem, city of peace, city of God. One is led by Pontius Pilate, the other by Jesus of Nazareth. Pilate arrived in Jerusalem on a fine war horse, surrounded by the might, pomp, and order of the Roman army. But he came unwillingly. He spent as much time as he could in the new Roman city of Caesarea, a relatively large, comfortable, sophisticated city on the shore of the Mediterranean Sea. As my colleague, Father Lane Davenport, put it, I imagine Pilate being annoyed having to trudge up to Jerusalem, that dusty, rocky, backward, provincial tinderbox of unwashed religious fanatics. Jesus and his followers, naturally, were among those unwashed religious fanatics, and they came not just willingly, but with determination and at great expense. They came because they loved God and insisted on making worship and sacrifices for Passover, there at the center of the spiritual world, in celebration of liberation from slavery in Egypt at the dawn of their national memory. Jesus chose to arrive and chose to do so in humility, existing in solidarity with the disenfranchised crowds who did not choose to live in humility, but rather were enduring the deprivations of foreign occupation and the symbolic power of celebrating God's ancient liberation from oppression was lost neither on them nor on the Romans. That was why Pilate had to go to Jerusalem, had to make a show of force. It was his job to keep the restless province in line, to obliterate any hope of freedom. And he did it with a level of brutality so ferocious that even his superiors in the Roman hierarchy were shocked. In retrospect, this conflict could have only ended badly. But at the time, the crowds that welcomed Jesus to the city that his ancestors once ruled as kings, must have felt the triumph was close at hand. Today, uniquely in the Christian year, we hear two readings from the Gospel. The first to start the action of Holy Week, and the second to show us where we are going. The Passion Gospel is a preview, a roadmap, preparation for the services later this week, and the mighty acts of grace and salvation that all Christians are called upon to walk through. We are reminded that the arrival of grace in humble celebration today is leading to the equally public departure of grace from the world on Good Friday, with taunts and jeers replacing the hosannas that so recently rang from our lips. The Church asks us to contemplate the commonality between Palm Sunday and Good Friday, and that commonality is grace. God's grace endures through the best and worst moments of human life. God's grace is constant because God's love is perfect, unbounded by space or time, pouring out for us even as we drive cold iron into Jesus' sacred body. The Church asks us to make a sacrifice of time this week, to follow Jesus on the hard journey of salvation. He gave up the balance of his adult life, but the Church asks only for 3 days. She slows down her calendar to sync up with the real-time journey to Bethany, the Temple Mount, the Upper Room, Gethsemane, the halls of power, Golgotha, and the final puzzle of a tomb in a garden. In making her days match the days of Jesus, the church brings us to him, brings us in humility, offering us this one opportunity to make a pilgrimage to Jerusalem without even going over the bridge. Holy Week sweeps away the miles and millennia that separate us from Jesus in Jerusalem, so that we can be there with him, so that we can watch grace operating up close and personal. I pray you accept the invitation to join the procession that Jesus is leading for us, from grace to grace and glory to glory.